Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a pretty fascinating idea. What if ancient wellness practices and the super weird world of quantum physics are actually connected? We're going to be looking at a source that suggests the real secrets to our vitality aren't just in our habits, but deep, deep inside our cells, down at the subatomic level. Right? It's a huge question, and it's exactly what we're going to unpack today. We're going to explore this idea that these two worlds, the ancient and the ultra-modern, might not be so separate after all. Okay, so here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll get into the quantum secrets that are already happening in our cells. Then, we'll see how that might link up with the quantum connection. After that, we'll look at aging as a quantum breakdown and how we might be able to hack that process. And we'll wrap up with something that feels straight out of science fiction, the idea of engineering a chi device. All right, let's jump in. All right, first things first. Before we get into any of the wilder ideas, let's get grounded in some real established science. And honestly, this is mind-bending stuff that's happening inside your body, like right this very second. This is the foundation for everything else. It's a phenomenon called quantum tunneling. And, to put it simply, it's kind of like a particle, say an electron, finding a secret portal through a solid wall. Instead of having to waste all this energy climbing over it, it just, poof, appears on the other side. It sounds like magic, but it turns out it's absolutely essential for life as we know it. And the difference in speed here, it's just staggering. I mean, look at this. If our electrons had to do things the old-fashioned way, the classical path, it'd be like taking the stairs. All of life's essential processes would just grind to a halt. They'd be way too slow. But with quantum tunneling, it's like an elevator. It's almost instantaneous. That's the speed that makes biology, well, possible. And get this. This isn't some fringe theory we're talking about. Quantum tunneling is a well-documented, real thing. It's happening constantly in the powerhouses of our cells, the mitochondria. It's fundamental to how enzymes work, how plants turn sunlight into energy. It even plays a part in keeping our DNA stable. It is everywhere. Okay, so we've established that this crazy quantum stuff is real, and it's happening in our bodies. Now let's move on to the next piece of the puzzle, the proposed bridge between this phenomenon and the ancient practice of Qigong. What's really cool is that modern science can actually measure the physical effects of practices like Qigong. We're not talking about just feelings. Studies show it can literally calm down your nervous system, trigger a deep relaxation response, and get more blood and oxygen flowing to your cells. It can even change your brain waves. These are real, tangible things happening in the body. Okay, so this brings us to the core hypothesis, and this is really important. The idea isn't that Qigong creates some new magical quantum effect. No, the theory is that by creating this state of deep cellular calm, it basically sets up the perfect internal environment for our existing quantum machinery, that tunneling we talked about, to just work better, to function at its absolute peak efficiency. So you might be wondering, how does this all connect to something we're all familiar with? Getting older. Well, the source we're looking at frames aging in a really interesting way, not just as simple wear and tear, but as a breakdown of this exact quantum efficiency. And this slide, this really lays out the proposed vicious cycle. It all starts with tiny little bits of damage to our cell structures as we age. Now, this makes the distance electrons have to tunnel just a little bit longer. But here's the catch. The probability of that tunnel happening drops exponentially. So a tiny change in distance has a huge effect. This slowdown causes energy leaks, which create these damaging molecules called ROS. And what do those do? They cause more damage, which starts the whole cycle over again, but faster each time. This quote from this source really just sums it all up perfectly. Aging can be seen not just as biochemical wear and tear, but as a progressive loss of finely tuned quantum efficiencies. So think about that. It's less like an old car rusting away and more like a high-performance engine slowly, millimeter by millimeter, losing its perfect timing. It's a loss of precision, but at a quantum level. Okay, so if aging is partly a loss of quantum efficiency, that leads to a pretty exciting question, right? Can we do something about it? Can we actually intervene and help support and maintain that efficiency? And it seems like the answer is yeah, probably. At least we can help indirectly. This table shows how some of those health strategies you always hear about might actually be working on this quantum level. Things like exercise and fasting, they help our bodies create fresh, structurally perfect mitochondria.
Antioxidants, they help protect the tunneling proteins from damage. Even preserving a specific fat in our mitochondria helps maintain that exact, precise spacing the electrons need to make their quantum leap.
All right, now we're going to take this whole idea to its most futuristic and, I gotta say, its most speculative conclusion. This source actually imagines what it would take to engineer a device that could directly influence these quantum effects in our bodies. The concept is basically to build this device from a cocktail of what they call quantum active materials, and each one would be picked for a very specific job. You'd have graphon for its amazing conductivity, some rare earth metals for their unique magnetic properties, and even zinc oxide for its ability to turn pressure into a little bit of electricity.
So the big idea here isn't to, blast your body with energy or anything like that. Not at all. The goal is to create a totally non-invasive, wearable patch. And this patch would create a super weak, carefully controlled field that would just gently nudge our cells' own energy systems to work a little better, a little more efficiently. Kind of like a conductor guiding an orchestra to play in perfect harmony. So how would it work? Well, it's imagined in layers. The first couple of layers would basically be the power source. They'd use materials like graphene and zinc oxide to soak up ambient energy from light or even just from your own movement and convert it into a tiny electrical charge to power the patch itself. Okay, now we get to the really wild part, the most speculative layer. This layer would use those rare earth metals to create these nanoscale magnetic fields. The theory, and again, this is theory, is that these tiny fields could influence a quantum property of electrons called spin, and basically help guide them along the most efficient tunneling pathways inside our mitochondria. Pretty out there, right? And then, of course, the final layer would be the one that actually touches your skin. It would be a safe, flexible layer made from a biocompatible polymer. This is the biointerfacing layer, and its whole job is to make sure the device's super subtle energy field can couple with the body effectively and, most importantly, in a totally safe way. So, at the end of the day, we're left at this really fascinating crossroads, right? We're standing right on the line between today's established science and tomorrow's incredible possibilities. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Is this a glimpse into the future of wellness? Or are we just looking at some brilliant science fiction in the making? It definitely blurs the line between ancient wisdom and cutting-edge quantum mechanics.